All right, what's up, everybody? This is A7X Fan Ben, and welcome to Vassal Campaign Game 4 with a 2025 update. So, 2 years since my last turn was played. I was able to play one here in fall 2025, and it was actually a more peaceful turn than usual. So, the theme of this turn was actually not even combat or even playing the game, really. For me, it was a theme of updates and reorganization and things like that. So, thank you again, as I've said in the past, to Cully333 for updating the Vassal module with the ships and sea creatures and new types. You can see a flotilla in this picture, actually. We used to have to proxy forts for those. So basically, there's a new module also for the CG4 game file itself. So this was to expand the borders so we could have more deck plates, because we were running out of deck plate space in the non-play areas of the map, like the tan colored edges that you'll see in later pictures. So I basically made a new Vassal module specifically for CG4, so that instead of having space for about 558 deck plates, I basically 10x'd the size of the borders in the module. So now we should have space for over 5,500 deck plates. So we should be good for many years to come, even as the game size continues to explode with every round and all the mega launches that keep happening. So on my turn, a lot of it was not playing, it was reorganization, like I said. So I basically reorganized my spreadsheets, got better tracking methods for stuff, and then I reorganized my deck plates in the game file so that they would match the spreadsheets. But you can actually find the full battle report in the description. I'll link to it. That has more details on pretty much everything I'm going to talk about here. So I'm trying to keep this relatively short. So here we see the pirates. It looks like they're gathering around a whirlpool. This is in the northeast section. The main development here, you can see the Blackleaf has put a town upgrade on that island, a spice island that the Corsairs and English were sharing. So those other factions aren't too happy about this. The pirates continue to expand, and it looks like they're trying to put military ports on islands that the Corsairs and English were sharing. This is actually only one of two islands that they put town upgrades on, and the ships that were carrying the town upgrades also have military port upgrades aboard. So, and then here we can see the other one. So this is actually south of the pirate and Corsair home islands and a little bit southwest of the English home island. So that's a textiles island, and it has a lot of landmass. So if the pirates are able to launch from here, they're going to be able to launch a lot of ships from here because they can dock more ships at an island of that larger size. So now we'll go back here. The pirates finally used their chain exploring system to transfer some metals tokens back home, but they'd actually rather use those ships as cargo ships for Whirlpool Strike Group supply. So the WSG is the Whirlpool Strike Group, and that's the main squadron, or really a full fleet, actually. It's actually numbers about 100 ships now, which is probably the biggest like purpose-driven battle fleet I've ever seen in a game, and it's going to only continue to get bigger from there. So pretty crazy. You can actually see some of them up towards the top left in that fog pool. So they're probably going to not use the chain exploring system where they don't have to move the ships, and they basically just explore to transfer metals down the line. They're probably actually going to not do that and actually convert these ships into like war supply ships, or even some hybrids potentially. So, because the way they can bring in hidden troves whenever they want, they don't really need resources. So the pirates, with their UT meta shenanigans, they basically made a mockery of the resource system. So they don't even really need to gather resources or gold like a normal fleet would. So here's the first of their many mega launches at the archipelago. So this is at the Skull Valley upgraded fort. You can see a ton of Whirlpool strike groups have gathered around the Whirlpool right there. And they've launched, as usual, a ton of ships from the fort, and as is customary, they basically launch as many ships as they can fit from all four of their launch points on every single turn. So, and the canoes are a nice addition. We were able to swap out the one-masted galleys that those had proxied for in the past. So that's right in the middle of the map. And then this one is the metals military port that we just saw a minute ago with that chain exploring system. Now they've launched from here as well. They only had room for 6, it looks like, but 2 of those are new sea creatures. So these are new to the module as of this year and last year. So they've got a sea dragon and a squid, both original actually. And you can see some less familiar names for the ships. So I think these are all, or at least most of them, should be Whirlpool Strike Group supply ships. So you can see they're outfitted with stuff like helmsman, shipwright, oarsmen, and the dinghy equipment. So ready to supply the warships of the WSG. And then they launched from their home island as usual. They've got a lot of ships right now at their home island repairing, things like that, so they didn't have as much room, but you can see that's the northern half, and then this is the southern half of their home island where they launched, I think, 6 ships total from those 2 spots. So, and then they also, of course, launched a bunch from the Textiles military port as well, which is near another Whirlpool. So you can see the details of all the launches in the full battle report, and now I believe there's 35 custom sets represented in Vassal Campaign Game 4. So it's really crazy. It's just an absolutely incredible testing ground for customs, and also an opportunity just to use stuff that a lot of people have never used in any games before ever. So I think CG4 is actually going to be the debut game for like the majority of custom game pieces created so far. So it's pretty wild. All right, so after the Pirates, the Cursed go. So this shows their home island location. They've launched from there. This is like at the end of their turn after they've already finished launching and stuff. So a bunch of new ships brought into play, including a giant squid. And the top left, you can see one of their whirlpooling upgraded forts has launched, or basically hatched, 6 sea dragons from it. So with the advent of sea creatures now being available in the Vassal module, the Cursed Pirates, of course, have a lot of those, so they were pretty happy to get some of those up and going. So a lot of sea dragons. There's actually going to be more you'll see in a minute, and they actually have ships in all 8 of the fog banks near the Cursed home island. So, and in an ominous warning of sorts, the Cursed and the Pirates both have all their fog hoppers ready to fog hop next turn, and they'll probably try to do that like throughout the game. So it's not just this round, but most rounds they'll probably make sure that their fog hoppers are always ready to fog hop, unless they're, on a mission and not in fog at the end of a round or at the end of a turn. So, and then, and actually at the bottom right here, you can see a new development where I think it's the Sea Duck, I think is the 2-masted junk at the bottom right at that Textiles island. She's upgraded the island to a military port. So the Cursed already were matching the Pirates with a game high 4 different launch points. And now they're going to have 5 as of next turn, because they can launch from there on their next turn. So, and they actually upgraded their final whirlpooling fort. So I think next round the Curse will actually have 6 launch points, which is pretty crazy. So, and the Pirates are working on getting up to 6 themselves. And then here at the Whirlpool Island, near the Spanish home island, this is way off in the southeast actually. At the other 2 Whirlpool forts that can launch right now, the Curse launched another 7 sea dragons were hatched. So they have 13 sea dragons in play, which I know sounds crazy because they only had a few from the original game, but there's a lot of custom sea dragons. They actually still have, I think, 3 or 4 more. I think their maximum is somewhere around 17 or so custom or total sea dragons. So they didn't even, I was thinking about just going all out and just getting them all, and then I realized I think I wanted some other ships instead, because the Cursed are building their own Whirlpool Strike Group as well, similar to the Pirates. So anyway, so the Pirates on Cursed have tons of launches happening every turn, and in this case, the Cursed are going kind of crazy in the southeast, at least for now. So, and then the Vikings, they're the 3rd out of my 4 factions. So they launched as usual. They actually got one of their rolls. I'm not going to go over the specifics, but they got one of their early turn die rolls to basically bring in a unique treasure, and they saw that their ally, the Barbary Corsairs, they knew they were about to run out of gold. The Barbary Corsairs only had 148 gold on their home island, which I know sounds probably like a lot, but in this game, it's actually less than like the average burn rate of a faction that's trying to launch all the time. And the Corsairs right now are under duress from a lot of pirate pressure, which we'll see in a minute near their home island. So the Corsair burn rate is usually around 200 gold per turn. So to launch new ships and crew. So the Vikings being allied with the Corsairs, the Corsairs do have their own copier to bring in UTs and whatnot through the pirate arcane ship and whatnot. But just because the Corsairs don't have an auto 6 yet, they don't have like a way to guarantee the rolls work. They hope to eventually, but they're kind of on emergency mode right now. So the Vikings helped out their ally, the Corsairs, by giving the Corsairs a hidden trove, which we'll see gets docked on their turn to get them rich again, which they kind of need to defend against the pirates. So Vikings mega launched as always, spent almost 300 gold, I think. Got some 10 masters in the fog bank. I think this third 10 master is their final one. I think that's their third and final custom 10 master that they were able to launch. And you can see the pirates off to their southeast. They're massing some stock gunships and maybe some pretty good ones too. So we'll see what happens with that over the long haul. And this is also part of the Viking turn. They round-earthed some ships to the south as they look to potentially make this Lumber Island a new launch point. So a little bit of a spoiler for the future, but anyway. And then off in the south, to the southeast, you can see the pirate home island and all their ships over there, some of their ships. The Jade Rebellion home island is actually north of this area at the top of the frame there. And at the left, you can see cursed ships in those fog banks. They were launched a turn or two ago. So a lot of those are like movers, like L movers. So the cursed want those to just hang out in the fog bank and just sacrifice their actions from the safety of the fog to move enemy ships and things like that. So, all right, so that's more of a wide shot. All right, here's the Corsair home island. So this is after they launched. So I think the left 5 ships at their home island here are new launches, and then the three-masted galleys on the right were either docked, or 2 of them docked, and then one of them is their copier, Nephila. So she has to give up her actions to copy, I think. So Tiger's Eye is the one that brought home the hidden trove that the Vikings placed on the Tiger's Eye. So, and there's actually, when they docked it, there were 546 ships in play. So when they docked it home, it was worth 1,092 gold. So they were able to get rich quick, just like they wanted to, and just like they have earlier in the game. And they did lose 3 ships to automatic fire mast scuttling. So, but then they launched 5, so it was a net gain of +2. So the Corsairs are back up to a fleet strength of 28 ships, which is where they were a couple rounds ago, I believe. And that brings our total ship count, total ships in play, to a new record 548. So as of last round, this game had under 500 ships in play. So the ship record for the most ships ever seen in a Pirates game, or a recorded Pirates game, as far as I know, was 509, I believe, for Command the Oceans in 2017, my physical campaign game from back then. And now Vassal Campaign Game 4, it was only a matter of time, but now Vassal Campaign Game 4 is the biggest Pirates game of all time, not by just by point count, but by ship count as well. So 548 ships in play, and it's only going to continue to increase. Every round sees usually at least 70 ships introduced, and I think that number is just going to increase. I think within a couple rounds, we're going to start seeing 100 new ships introduced per turn. Someday, I think the Pirates and the Cursed will be the first factions to potentially run out of new ships to launch, which is just going to be absurd, just given the sheer volume of customs. There's like thousands of customs that the community has made over the years, and they're legal for play in this game, of course. So eventually they'll hit some kind of limit, but then they can work on completing the fleet per our house rule to launch original ships duplicates. So, all right, so the Corsairs have a defensive position right now. They're still reeling from that devastating pirate counterattack from 2 rounds ago, and they're really looking to change their strategy. So instead of being really brash and just going after the pirates whenever they have gunships available, they're basically trying to be more diplomatic now and trying to look for allies and basically adopt a more defensive position. You can kind of see a more defensive position here, and they I'm not going to say too much more. Oh, I should mention that Xerix and I, he's one of the other 2 players. So Pirate Age 14 and Xerix are the 2 people I'm playing the game with. And Xerix and I actually had the first CG4 live in-person meeting. So I was actually in Los Angeles for Talk Like a Pirate Day back in September, and we wanted to discuss CG4 while we were there, just because like my turn was like in progress when we were talking, basically. And so the Corsairs, the Vikings, and the English and the Conglomerate were the main factions that had some discussions. I'm not going to reveal the full extent because a lot of it's like, you know, in-game secrets. There's some interesting stuff being discussed, but it'll have to wait until it's more public or more obvious. in the game to put in the battle reports. But anyway, so yeah, that's the Corsair Home Island situation, and their launches are basically how I end my overall turns across my 4 factions. So anyway, and then this shows the deck plate area for the the pirate Whirlpool Strike Group. I don't know if this is even all of them, but you can see this is part of why I pretty much had to make this module edit to make a new module just to expand the deck plate areas, because previously we could only do columns, I think 4 high in the regular module, or with the previous ocean with how the borders were. But now we have just ridiculous amounts of space that the intention is for this module edit to be, we should be good for decades basically of play. And the game might actually last that long. It's already been going on for 7.5 years. We started in April 2018, and it just keeps getting bigger. There's no end in sight. Most of the combat is ahead of us too. I mean, it's not, a lot of cool, interesting things have happened, but there's just so much latent potential. CG4, I think it has the potential to become, the best Pirates game of all time. It's already very high on my list. I would rank it in my top 5 favorite Pirates games, or most interesting and memorable games I've ever played easily. I think it has a chance to become number 1 ahead of, I don't know what I would put number 1, but Command the Oceans Economy Edition and Vassal Campaign Game 1 those are all probably in my top 5 pretty easily. So this one might actually surpass those. We'll see. But anyway, you can see just the scale of the deck plate space needed, because the fleets are just monstrous. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. So, and you can see the full point count and ship count by fleet, by faction in the full battle report, which again, I'll put in the link in the description and comments. So to wrap up, this is the crazy northeast quadrant. So it's not even the full quadrant technically, but this is basically the northeast corner. And that region contains 4 out of the 6 largest factions in the game. So you can see the Pirate Home Island is at the top. The Viking Home Island is at the top left. The Corsair Home Island we just saw. And then to the east, a little bit southeast of the Corsairs, are the English Home Island. And they just got a trove last round from the Vikings. So they're able to launch a lot of ships per turn now as well. So this is one of the craziest situations I've ever seen in a campaign game, where there's just unbelievable amounts of power and potential in this area with mega fleets and a lot of tension. So the Corsairs and the Vikings, of course, have their alliance. It's not public in the game, but it's starting to become more and more obvious by the turn to the pirates and any other factions really that are paying attention that the Corsairs and Vikings are working closely together, which is really fascinating, of course, because the pirates are in between them. So even though that might make their position vulnerable long term, the pirates are easily the biggest and best faction right now. They control almost 50% of the points in play. Their fleet numbers over 6,000 points now, so they should be able to handle any attacks, at least in the short term. But it's a really fascinating situation, and of course it's even more fascinating now that the pirates have actually built some towns to claim some of these islands that the Corsairs and the English were sharing. So we'll see how that develops. And then this is, I know you can't see hardly anything, but this is everything. So this is the whole ocean, and you can see the deck plate space is now it might actually be a bigger area than the ocean itself. But then I can zoom in to see, this is a super high res, or this is a big picture. It's 30 megabytes for the PNG. But anyway, so I can zoom into the middle to see a bit more detail. But anyway, so this is when you open up the file. This is the kind of overwhelm that you're greeted with for a game that is the biggest recorded Pirates game ever. Like I said, it's over 500 ships in play. The point count is now over 14,000. So it's already the biggest game by points by a big margin. So it's just astounding. And I think it's just going to get crazier. So Pirate AJ 14 is up next, and hopefully we'll see more play either this year or next year. So stay tuned for more updates as this crazy epic adventure continues. And like I said, you can check out the full battle report with all the specific ships that I launched in the description and comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more Pirates action.